Welcome. Your session will begin shortly. Welcome to today's webinar on telephone techniques. My name is Ellie and I will be leading the session today. In today's session, you will gain an understanding of how to make and deal with customer telephone calls, how to plan and manage customer telephone calls, and finally, how to build a rapport and deal with customer questions and requests. Planning for customer telephone calls. Before making your telephone call, it is important that you ensure all customer contact details are correct. This is done to make sure that you are calling the correct customer. Once you have checked that the customer's details are correct, it is a good idea to form a plan for the call. The purpose of planning the telephone call is to ensure that it meets not only the customer's requirements, but also those of the business. Your plan can include gathering relevant materials, checking over previous call logs or customer details, and making sure you are fully prepared before making the call. Just before you call the customer, ensure you are in a suitable environment and that where practically possible, you are free from background noise and particularly other confidential conversations. Dealing with customer telephone calls. When dealing with customer phone calls, whether you are making or receiving the call, it is important that you identify yourself and your company to the customer. Your company may have a telephone procedure or script which you must follow to ensure that all phone calls are made professionally and fit for the company image. For example, this may include, "Hello, this is Ellie from the Real Apprenticeship Company." The next step is to identify the reason for the call, and it is important that you do this promptly. When receiving calls, you may ask, "How can I help?" to ensure any customer queries are dealt with. When making calls, you should explain why you are contacting the customer so that they understand the purpose of the after-sales call. It is a great idea to take notes during the telephone conversation. This will enable you not only to reflect on the purpose for the call, but also to use these details in the future to fully support customer service. If you are dealing with an incoming call, this will also support any message which may be needed to be passed on to other colleagues. It can also be used to update the customer records and will help when making future calls. When making phone calls, be aware that the customer does not know what is going on around you, so try to keep disruption to a minimum and remain professional at all times. It is important that we ensure incoming and outgoing phone calls are professional, as the person you are speaking to may be a new customer and an unprofessional attitude does not give customer a positive impression of the business. This could lead to loss of business and a poor reputation for the company. Building customer rapport. While you are making a phone call, you should not only be aware of what you are saying, but also your non-verbal communication. The most effective way of lifting your tone of voice during a telephone conversation is to smile. Smiling lifts the tone of your voice, which enables you to show greater interest in the customer and their needs. This promotes a positive image of yourself and the company and enables you to build a rapport with the person you are speaking to. It is important that you speak clearly and slowly when communicating with customers over the phone to make the conversation easier to understand. There are many reasons for this, for example, to compensate for poor phone reception or to adapt to any additional customer needs such as a hearing impairment. You should also be aware that not all customers will have the same level of understanding or technical knowledge, so you should use clear language when speaking to them and avoid jargon. Summarising the outcomes of the telephone conversation is vital, as this will reduce the risk of any miscommunication and ensuring that customer complaints, inquiries and aftercare issues have been satisfactorily dealt with. Managing telephone calls. When dealing with customer telephone calls, you should endeavour to resolve any complaints or issues within your area of knowledge. But if you are unable to deal with them, you should transfer them to your manager or another member of staff that is better equipped to sort out the problem. If you have taken a message or have been asked to contact a customer, it is important to follow this up and fulfill any commitments which have been made, including ensuring that any message left is passed on to the appropriate person and that it is dealt with. Due to the nature of the business conducted over the phone, you must ensure that customer confidentiality is maintained at all times. You must make sure that customer records are kept up to date, that sensitive information is filed or shredded after use, and that calls are not made over an open line or customers are put on speaker. This prevents customer information from being shared with others in the office, and also prevents the customer from picking up confidential information from other calls. Recap of today's session. During this session, we have covered how to make and deal with customer telephone calls, how to plan and manage customer telephone calls, and finally, how to build a rapport and deal with customer questions and requests. Does anybody have any questions? Thank you for your attendance.